going to be talking about the champion system in the game. So for a show of hands, how many people are veteran rank 1 or above in the room? Wow, that's almost 19 people. All right. How many people are satisfied with the veteran content at this point? 2 people that work here. Okay. That's what we have. So we feel the same way. So this is something we've been working on for a while, as you probably know. And now I'm going to give you the typical disclaimer that we always give in one of these, which is, everything is subject to change. And hopefully that's good news, because part of the reason this is subject to change is we actually want your feedback on what we're talking about, which is why we have you today. So that's a really cool thing for us. It's very rare that we as developers get that opportunity to do that. So thank you guys for coming out sincerely. All right. Here's what you may know. So hopefully you have seen the QuakeCon video about the champion system. And if you haven't seen the QuakeCon video, you were probably badly picked by your guild to come here. So first, we have, what you may know is that this is a progression system that's, past level 50, which of course goes into your veteran ranks, that provides significant growth opportunity for your account. So not just your character, but your whole account, right? And so Maria's going to go into that because that's actually part of the fun part, whereas I get the other stuff. All right, what you may not know is it is a complete overhaul of game numbers and the way some abilities work. And that's what I'm going to be talking about today. So that's the first part of this presentation. And so the first question you may have is, why? Well, one, we can't just put the champion system on top of the current game, or on top of the current system. Well, we could, but we'd be pretty irresponsible to do so, right? So imagine that what we're doing is we're actually increasing the player overall effectiveness in the game, right? So if we increase the player overall effectiveness by 20%, then we'd actually have to start doing things like changing the monster effectiveness by 20%, right? So you actually have to balance this out, so you don't just make the players, so much better than the content, because then veteran content isn't fun, the trials aren't fun, the veteran dungeons aren't fun, all of that stuff, right? You have to make sure the game has parity and offers a challenge to the players, which I'm sure you're very well aware of. So that means, no matter how we slice it, a complete rebalance is necessary. Now how you go about that complete rebalance, it can be done a number of ways. But that is the truth of adding the champion system into something like that, and that is why you can't take these things so lightly. So that is why you may be saying, hey, where is this new, champion system, and when is it coming online? Well, this is one of the reasons why it's going to take some time. Okay, so forgive me, this animation is going, it's going to skip one, but I'm going to go ahead and put it up. So one of the other things you might imagine is we have to add granularity to the system. Let me explain why. If I give you the chance to increase the number 40 by 1%, what are you going to get? I didn't mean to give you a math problem. Right, but it's not going to be well represented by the game at all, right? Because it's 1%, it's 1/100th of 40, okay? So from a back end of the game, it would completely know what that is. It would know that that's 0.4 at this point, right? But from the front end of the game, you're not going to see any representation of that whatsoever. So when you think about that, what we have to do is we have to allow you, for when you push the button to say, hey, I want this to be important, we actually have to say, if you're adding 1%, we have to make that feel meaningful to you. And the simplest, best way to explain that is we're going to multiply everything times 10. Right? So all the numbers you currently see in the game for, say, armor, for spell penetration, all those numbers will be multiplied by 10. And we're not doing that willy-nilly. We're doing that so you actually see the results of adding a percentage point to your character. All right? So the next part is adding points to soft capped abilities would be bad. Okay, which may be a strong way of saying everybody here hopefully knows what the soft capping is, right? The soft capping is when diminishing returns for your points start. And so you start getting diminishing returns on these numbers that you're working with. So as you add more armor, even though it says you're adding 50 points of armor on a specific piece of armor, you'll actually get less value for that on diminishing returns. And there's a number of reasons we do that, and I'll go into that in a minute. But the champion system is also based on a series of slightly diminishing returns. It's not quite the same thing. So imagine that I say at the very beginning of the champion system, and actually Maria will go into this even some more, is you have 1% at the first part. Now the next point you spend in the champion system might be worth 0.98% or 0.97%, right? So you're still getting value for the points that you're spending, but each time you get slightly less value, and there's a reason for that, and there's a very good reason for that. But adding that onto soft cap numbers would feel really strange and would be hard just to figure out mathematically. We don't want to be that, kind of obtuse, so to speak. We want to make sure that all the numbers are clear. So we have to make sure that it feels good, so we're going to take out soft capping from the game on that stuff. Wow, imagine, that's okay, but you know where I'm going with this. All right, thank you so much, that's it for today. All right, so, all right, and furthermore, if we're going to do all of this, this is a good time to correct all of the other issues that we have. Okay, this is a good time to correct issues. I didn't even put all of, so ignore that I just said all of, but this is a good time to correct the issues that we have in the game, and I'll go into some of these other issues that you see now, okay? All right, so what are the benefits of the current system? Why does the current system exist the way it does if we're not completely satisfied? And in a word, it's beta, but I'll explain it. Now, understand that I am talking to the 1%. Hopefully everybody here in this room understands that you're the 1%. You're the elite of probably the players in the game, but there's 99% of the players who probably aren't as skilled as you are. And in fact, there's 80% who I know aren't as skilled as you guys are. And so that's a really important thing to understand. Because one of the benefits of the current system is it helps prevent bad builds. We have a game that is based on having to block, having to interrupt, and having to dodge, and knowing when to do all of those things. Is any of that hard? Anybody? Not really. I mean, we didn't build it to be hard. We built it to be something you had to watch and engage in. But for some people, it's actually really hard. When you add on top of that the freedom to build your character the way you want to build your character, then you get to people who are actually able to kind of create what they consider bad builds, because they're having to get past the skill requirements of just general player dexterity skill as well as the character build skill. So we started to see a gulf in beta where we had a bunch of people saying the game is too hard, and then we had a bunch of other people saying, probably the people in this room, the game is too easy, right? Because you've already figured out all the mathematical puzzle to it. And then we have the other people who are just like, I don't get it, I'm dying all the time, right? So what we did to help prevent that was we allowed a freedom of how to play, which allows players to go over limits. And I'm going to try to explain that the best way I know how. So imagine you have, and I'm going to use armor a lot in this presentation, imagine you have 150 armor points total that you can have, right? But what we've said is, well, we're going to let players get to these armor totals in a lot of different ways. So not just the armor you wear, but the abilities you use, the potions you use, the enchantments you use, and all of these things. And it actually allows players to go over the complete total of the 150. And by allowing people to go over that total, that means that a lot of people kind of reach maximum effectiveness pretty easily. But by allowing players to reach maximum effectiveness pretty easily, wow, that's a mouthful. What that actually does is that then means that you start to have people who are able to kind of not abuse the system, but use the system to their greatest effect, which is, imagine we have light armor wearers who could suddenly get to the top of the armor chain, right? And that's kind of what you're seeing right now, is you have light armor tanks, and everybody's seen that. And that wasn't really our intention with it. What we were trying to do is we were trying to help out those players who really couldn't grok the system as well and try to help them along. So there was a lot of benefit to the current system. All right, but let's talk about the improvements needed in the current system and some of the things we've analyzed here. Well, what is happening is that the trade-offs aren't as pronounced, and you see this a lot. So I just mentioned like light armor wearers can become, some of the best tanks because they can already reach the same amount of armor that somebody in heavy armor could wear. So that means you're not having to make a trade-off or a decision point of, well, why do I want to wear heavy armor when it seems so obvious that you want to wear light armor, because that can already get you what you want. You have other benefits to your magicka and magicka regen and those things. And so that's why you see a lot of these magicka tanks going on. All right, here's another one for Andrew. It's too easy to hit soft cap right now, right? So this is something we didn't really intend, but it's just really fast when you start to see those diminishing returns kick in. Now there's a reason for this, but that's still, to a lot of players, they see that symbol as very negative versus something that's positive to them. Okay? And then the other thing, and this is kind of a back-end thing on our end, it actually makes balance harder for us, because once you can start to overlap in these systems, we have to come up with other ways to make light armor more meaningful, versus, heavy armor more meaningful versus light armor. And so that's just harder on us as a crew versus what we'd really like to do, which is just have the armor mean the armor, and that's it, right? So that's the things we want to address among many others. So let's talk about, all right, I just said we're going to rebalance the game. Hopefully that fills everybody here with the same amount of fear and concern it fills us with, right? But where do we start? Well, this is the first one, again. That's the first thing we're going to do, is remove soft caps, right? Now this is all on the back end. If we started doing all of this stuff on what we call our currently live branch, then you would see all of this stuff happen immediately, and then the game would completely break. So we actually have to take this to a completely different section of development and kind of do this in its own like sandbox type of scenario. All right? Then we're going to have to add granularity. So what would that look like? All right, well that jumped too. All right, so as we can see here, this is pretty familiar, right? This is just armor. This is what's on, pretty much live right now. Okay, and everybody should be pretty, used to something of this nature. But if you remove that soft cap and you start to look at these numbers, they go up. It's one of those things where we have to look at and say, like, okay, these numbers seem high, but they're actually not that much less understandable, and you start to actually see the benefits of what 1% does to these numbers, okay? All right, so what else do we have to do? Well, we have to get limits. Okay, what do I mean by get limits? So imagine that what we say is that armor actually caps out at 50% mitigation. So there is a translation from how much armor, and which on live is around, at level 50, around 3,000 armor equals 50% mitigation right now. By the way, physical mitigation, as Marie is telling me, yes. But what that means is that you can never get over 50% physical mitigation in the game. You just can't. It's hard cap. That's it. That's all the benefit you're ever going to get out of it. So if you go over 3,000 at level 50, that's all that's going to happen there. So anything you put past that is not really useful for you, other than if somebody's coming up and puncturing you, you have a bit of a, I guess a buffer, so to speak, so that it'll take you down. But that's what we mean by getting limits. So we have to know at each level what we want those top limits to be. So whether we want that to be 3,000 at level 50 or whether we want that to be 30,000. And there's a reason we have to get that limit. I'm going to call that the pie, because we're going to slice the limits into that delicious pie. So what does that mean? And I will show you in just a second, I promise. This will start to clear up. So we're going to also then, once we slice these limits, we're going to have to change the numbers and abilities, items, enchantments, all of the things that can modify these basic stats. Okay? Let's look at the live pie right now. This pie is a lie, so I could have just called this the lie pie. Because, as I said, this actually goes over the limits. Right? So imagine I can get past, right now, the 3,000 in armor. And then it doesn't matter what else happens. But what you may not know is what each individual thing contributes, or what the contribution is for each of these different things. What if I told you shield right now is 1% of the contribution to total armor that you could possibly have? Or reinforced and defending, those traits were actually 8%. Enchants at 10%, item set bonuses are at 9%, additive buffs. So additive buffs, to explain this, are, since we have a total in numbers, and I was using the number 3,000 in armor, right? Additive buffs just mean that they're just going to add that number. So they're going to add 600 to that number, right? So whatever that number is in armor, that's what an additive buff is. A multiplicative buff is saying I'm going to multiply some amount times the base of whatever you have, right? So that's what the difference is between a multiplicative buff and an additive buff is. So for instance, if you have less base armor, a multiplicative buff will actually be somewhat less effective than, say, an additive buff would be, which is just a direct number. Let's look at what happens if we go with the champion system. All right. Now these are suggested, and these are what we're actually looking at putting into the numbers now. So again, we're taking armor as a representative. When I'm using armor here, this isn't just applying to armor. This is applying to health, magicka. This is applying to other things like spell crit. What else, Maria?
Power.
Power. Yeah. So any of the stats you can imagine, we're going through and we're doing this for every stat. We're taking this pie slicing activity for each stat, right? So now look at the base. Now the base is 24% versus the base only being 8%. By the way, that base means armor. So imagine that even maxed out legendary heavy armor was only going to give you 8% of the total that you could actually ever achieve. But now, it'll give you 24%. Okay? The Mundus buffs will give you 2%. A shield, now 5% versus 1%. Reinforced is 4%, defending is 2%. Reason reinforced is more is because you have so many pieces of armor that can be reinforced versus defending, which is the trait on the weapon, right? That can actually, so we want to make sure that you have more percentage available to multiple pieces of armor versus one weapon. Okay, we have enchants. Those are going to add up to 4% of this total value for the armor. And we have item set bonuses, which will now add up to 5%. Then we have buffs. Buffs are what we're considering active casted abilities in this case. So that means like anything that adds to your armor is something that you'll actually have to activate. And the reason this is such a large piece is we want combat to still be very active. And so we want you to have to, in certain situations, add to this, right? And then we have champion, all right? So champion then it goes into 24% of the total slice of pie. So that means out of all of the amounts of armor, you can now look at this and see how it's very neatly sectioned out into all of the different traits, enchantments, food, buffs, all of those things, okay? So that's kind of the way we're going about making sure that the champion system is going to be balanced. But that's only part of it, right? So next, once we've done all of that, oh, Andrew, go ahead.
I just had a question about the pie concept. Do each of those sources have an independent limit, or can you absorb, like if you reduce one slice of the pie, can you make up for that with other?
You cannot.
Okay.
In fact, they do have, the reason they're sliced like this is because they are limited in that way.
Okay.
So no shield can go over 5%. There's two things, and I'm glad you asked this, that actually can go outside the limits. That's ultimates, and that's racial passives.
Okay.
Those will be outside of their pies.
So it seems very paper, like there's different stacking families, but you can't. Okay, yeah, I think I understand.
Okay, great.
Could you actually just bring a pie next time? Because this is very teasing.
So sure, we can bring pie. Okay, so if we have to change all of the numbers in the abilities, items, and enchants now to match all of the things that we just said. So now that we know all the numbers for each individual contribution, then that's when we're going to change all of the numbers in those things, right? But then we have to get what we call rate limits, and this is pretty common. So now we have to find out what the potential maximum output of damage somebody has is, right? So this is things like DPS. There's other things like how much damage you can absorb. So these rate limits on these activities in the game, because you can't just do the, hey, here's the numbers and does it work? You actually have to, play them and see if that's actually going to work out the way you expect. So that's why we have to get the rate limits. Then once we do that, we will adjust the NPC and monster stats and abilities. Okay, so once we know what the players can do, then we're going to start adjusting all of the monsters and all of the abilities the monsters have. So this is how we start balancing things like trials, Dragon Star Arenas, and all that versus this. And of course, there's this next one, which is test, correct, test, and correct. And so that's kind of what we're going to do. So before I hand this over to Maria, are there any questions about how this is going to work? Any questions on the back end? I know this is a lot to take in. I know this hopefully simplified it somewhat, but I know it's a complex thing. Yes?
I've got a question about the price. If I want to get to the maximum number, do I have to use as many defending and reinforced items as I can? And if I don't, I just don't get the numbers.
That's right. You won't get the maximum.
Okay.
Sorry, I have one more slide after this. I forgot. But go ahead.
So the composition of the pie, the theoretical maximum in terms of like something like armor or any of your other stats, that's going to be different for each of the 4 classes because of the class abilities that go into the buffs slice.
Yes.
How's that going to work?
Well, what it's going to say is that each of the classes will have their own contribution to certain things. So you're actually talking about the abilities and buffs, right?
Yeah.
So there may be some classes, although this is going to go out in testing, that won't get to that max. So we'll have to do things to actually get them to that max, right? So that's why I was saying this is going to change some abilities as well.
So for example, if some classes are able to get the maximum out of like for example buffs
Yeah.
that they could get there, or they choose to go all into enchanting, where somebody else doesn't, you can still make up that somewhere else. You either go down another still line or something like that. You'll never be able to reach over that limit, so you'll only ever be able to get to the maximum total contribution of the slice of that pie.
But the composition of the pie will...
The composition of the pie will not shift.
No.
No, you just may not be able to fill up that slice.
Ah,
You'll have to make up for it in another slice somewhere else. Most people will not be able to fill up the whole pie unless they go completely into that.
So like if you put 2% into shield, you can put that added 3% somewhere else?
No,
No.
you have lost that 3%.
Yes. You have lost. Yeah, that's exactly right.
So effectively, it makes you make like meaningful choices between how you're doing.
Right. So I'll come back to the questions real quick. So let me go through that. So what does this mean, really? So in fact, you'll have to make commitments to be the best in a stat, which is going to really, really, really give us more varied builds and more interdependence on the varied builds, right? So this means your builds and your choices are you're going to feel them a lot more. It's going to matter a lot more to you. So this is the other one. We'll be changing some abilities. Andrew, your question is here. We will be changing some abilities, and one of the things we're going to start out with is there may be abilities that no longer stack. And part of this reason is because we want those abilities to feel really meaningful when you kick them off. And so we want to make sure that they have the maximum amount of the pie they can actually have given for those buffs and whatnot. Okay? And itemization is going to be a lot more important at this point, right? If we're saying that you have to get reinforced, but you can't get to that max without everything being reinforced, then that means you're going to have to make a decision at that point. Now, we don't expect everybody to go to the maximum at every stat. You'll be effective if you don't, but you'll be the best if you do at a certain thing. Okay? And then the dynamics of combat are going to change greatly. So this is going to change the way you go into approach situations and any of your veteran content, Dragonstar Arena, the trials, those things, because we're going to balance it so at overland content, just say normal overland content and say the 1 to 50, you'd probably get by with only having to have like maybe 40% of any particular stat, maybe even less. But later on in these trials and things like that, you're going to want to have closer to 90% to 100% in those. Okay, sorry, that was the last slide. So now, let's ask questions.
Are you going to talk about what this means to heavy, light, medium armor, or is Maria doing that?
Yeah, I can talk about what it means to heavy, light, medium armor. I'll go through the questions and I'll round back up to that.
This is looking as ESO 2, in fact, when I look at that. It's like if we are going to play a brand new game, because a lot of things are going to change, and in a positive way, according to me. I'm very glad about what I've seen today. And when can we expect to see the first changes of the champion system?
That's a good question. I'm going to be honest with you, when it's ready. This is a system you cannot take lightly, right? And when you change stuff like this, you have to make sure we've play tested and we've balanced. So I honestly, we have a date we're shooting for, but I don't even feel comfortable giving that out until we actually see all of how this is actually working out in testing at this point. So.
Okay, so when I look at this, I see two things. I see groundwork for additional systems later on to make it easier for you guys. And I see the ability to tweak my character on a finer level. But what's it going to mean to Joe Casual? How is the casual player that plays 2 hours a week going to really notice the effect? Is it going to be noticeable to them, or is it just going to be same old, they just don't have a little icon that shows a soft cap? Okay,
there's a couple of different ways I could look at that. Hopefully, for how they feel about the game and the way it's balanced, and I'll go back to Jess's question on this, right? So let me go back to the pie real quick. What they'll probably notice first off is something on armor. Imagine I take this and I slice this into 3s here. That's light armor, that's medium armor, and that's heavy armor, right? And so light armor wearers are probably going to feel a little bit more squishy than they do right now. And they'll be able to augment that through various means, but that's one of the first things I think they'll notice. That's going to be true. But hopefully we've got it balanced so they don't notice it as much as the higher level players do, the less casual people do. The other thing that they're going to notice probably right away is the champion system coming online. We're going to balance it hopefully in the 1 to 50, and that's where I'm assuming what you mean when you say mostly casual players are. Then what they'll notice is, oh, when I get to champion, I actually feel a lot more powerful, and the content becomes even easier because this applies to my entire account, not just my character. And so I'm able to put points in that I want to put points in into all of these different stats.
So you're saying as you level up, it gradually takes more of an effect, and they'll notice it, so they'll kind of have a time to adjust from as they level?
Yeah.
Okay. Because I was more worried about it being an in your face, here it is sort of thing, and
Yeah,
that turns
so
a lot of people off.
So are we, that's going to be the balancing trick for us, right? That you mentioned. That's why I went through the whole part at the beginning of like we had to make sure in beta we were adjusting to these, but this will actually allow us to balance it a little easier and have a language internally that makes more sense for how to balance to lower level players.
So I look at this pie and I see 4% reinforced. So out of your 3,000 armor, you can do 4% if you pick that trait. How are you going to handle something like impenetrable, where you're not taking an arrow shot, reducing 100 damage down to, with this here would be 96, but you're reducing 50% of their potential. So you got a trait out there that's so good, but doesn't directly reduce damage.
It will change some of the ways that traits are calculated as well.
Okay.
Okay, so we've been talking about specifically that scenario yesterday, and we were talking about ways to adjust that. One of the ways that came up, I think, was we were talking about going to flat numbers on that, because flat numbers will actually help us make the comparison a little bit easier versus the penetration being, you know, like on a percentage basis.
Okay.
Yeah. And that way we can also make it so when it levels, that rating keeps going up. So, or the effectiveness of it keeps going up, sorry.
Okay.
Yep.
I see you, with the champion system, there are 3 big pieces. So the champion, the buffs, and the base. And you told us that the base is the armor that I'm wearing. So the problem at the moment is, for many players I know, and for me especially, I am playing an orc and I love heavy armor. But if I play as a healer or DPS, then it is not very good to wear heavy armor because the stats and the buffs are not good for this. So my question is, with this champion system, can I wear heavy armor instead if I DPS or heal? Or is it?
If I understand your question correctly, I actually think the champion system is going to make it so if you want to, say, play a tank role, you're going to want the heavy armor. If you're going to want to play a DPS role, you're probably going to wear medium or light. And if you're going to want to play the healing role, you're probably going to want to play, you know, something that gains magicka quicker, and that's probably going to be the light armor, right? So I think it's actually going to take what you're saying and make it more so into that.
But if you want to wear heavy armor, you can make up your lack of magicka in the champion system, as well as other itemization things like enchants and things like that.
Right. Yeah.
My question is, if the champion system, I see the armor will 24% from the champion system. Till now, my veteran rank is 0%.
Right.
And okay, I see now, if I do the champion system, I will have more armor. Okay. So, but will it help to make the content, the Alliance Stones 2, Alliance Stones 2, Alliance Stones 3 meaningful? So, or can I get to Cracklon after level 50 and can go there and raid with my guild mates and do the group content, or must I do these 10 zones for the champion system to have the 24?
No, we'll balance Craglorn appropriate to, we'll balance everything appropriate to you not needing to go so strictly into the champion system. Maria's actually going to get into a little bit of that.
Okay.
Because I think there's actually two questions you might have there, and one of them will also involve player separation, because if I have 24%, there's going to be some questions about player separation that Maria's actually going to answer for you. So I'm going to hold on that and see if she doesn't help clear that up. Okay. Here.
When you roll this out, is this going to roll out in one giant patch, or is it going to be incremental patches?
Well, okay, so what we're doing right now is we're doing some back-end ability tweaking that will probably come out in an earlier update. That'll start doing things like preparing it for the system coming up. So there'll be some abilities that actually change, and I think people will scratch their head and say, well, why did this ability change? But it'll come up in a slew of other ability changes where people go, yes! Right? And then it's not really to bait and switch, it's really just a prep for the system. So there will be changes that prep for the system, but this is all part of what we're going to call phase 3 coming in. Yes.
Quick question. Would this pie then basically apply the same to critical damage, the way that the percentages are done?
Mm-hmm.
And that if you were to take, for example, instead of, you're going to have the trade-off where your enchantment now might be a critical enchantment, and your trait would change to precise on the weapon, and then you would be using your championship points and basically not applying them to armor, but you'd apply them to critical or spell penetration, or whatever it might be.
Yeah.
And you're just going to have to choose. You might put, I'm imagining that this is, if you invested 100% of your championship points, it would make up 24% of the pie, right?
It would.
But you might then want to invest 50% in critical and 50% in armor, and so it's just going to.
And once you understand, as I said, when Maria comes up, she'll explain kind of the back end of it, and you'll understand why it's actually more advantageous in the champion system, specifically this piece of pie for you to split up a little bit.
Exactly. Yeah, I see that.
Okay. Yes, Andrew.
So I really like what I'm seeing here, but I'm curious in terms of the player experience that you envision for, like, you know, the average player seeing this sort of thing in game. What are the challenges that you envision for helping them to understand how this system works without them needing to see a PowerPoint presentation and a pie chart?
Well,
so like in terms of like the UI and being able to see where the contribution to your stat comes from, or
if you want me to be honest, 90% of our players don't care. They just kind of trust us, right? And I mean, right or wrong, they do. And so what ends up happening is that when that goes through, they'll just say like, oh cool, I'm getting more of this particular stat, or oh cool, I'm getting more of this particular stat. That tends to be about the way 80%, and I'm actually being really like lowballing that, people play. And so it's really for the hardcore people that really kind of get into like how the numbers are set up and what the limits are and things of that nature.
But you don't have to worry about going over, because these are the theoretical limits, so it's like you're never like, oh, I've got too much of this.
Right. And like I said, the first thing they're going to feel is like they might feel a little bit squishy for their light armor, and they'll notice that, oh, I no longer have this soft capping thing going on, and oh, all the numbers got bigger. Why did they do that? That will probably be the biggest question we get, is why did all the numbers get bigger? These look uglier than the smaller numbers.
I mean, I'm just thinking back to the Dayoc tooltips or whatever, where it showed you like, here's your base, here's from your equipment, here's from your buffs.
Right.
And that kind of breakdown.
We are doing an entire kind of tooltip overhaul for a lot of the abilities to explain them a lot more. Eric Robol's going to present tomorrow. We'll explain a lot of the ability changes that are going to happen. But yeah, tooltips is a big part of that.
And you would be shocked, or maybe not, by the number of people that pick armor based on how it looks.
Yeah.
Even irregardless of type, like what looks good as opposed to anything.
Well, if I'm going to die in the battlefield, I'm going to die dressed well.
I've seen your pink armor.
It's good. It's the right month.
I worked hard for that.
The pink
So right here.
stands out.
I would like to get on his point, because I think the current behavior of people don't care too much about their stats is because, as you already mentioned, you reach the soft caps pretty fast and pretty easy. But with these changes, you don't anymore. And if you want to get as high as possible, you need to know somehow how you get there. And not everyone is a theory crafter like many sitting here. Like I'm not a theory crafter at all. I hate numbers actually, but I want to get the best out of my tank.
Sure.
And I don't use 400 different add-ons that tell me so many numbers. I don't want that.
Let me reassure you. So with this system, for the first time, we're not actually, because we're taking away the soft caps and things of that nature, we're not actually doing anything that you wouldn't expect. Which means that when you put on a better piece of armor, you're actually getting the full benefit of that armor. When you put on reinforced armor, you're getting the full benefit of reinforced. You'll always know that everything that adds to your armor is making your armor better. That's the benefit.
So I can think for myself, if I want highest numbers for armor, I just take everything. I need everything that pushes my armor.
Yeah.
Okay.
And that's the simplest way to think of it. So it's actually simplifying things from that angle, right? Versus, oh, well, I only have to equip 4 pieces of reinforced and 3 pieces of, penetration, or sorry, yes, 1, but yes. All right. There was a question over here.
Is this replacing the veteran system? Like we're going to see our vet levels disappear?
Yep, Maria will talk about that in a second. That yep was yes, I'm acknowledging your question, and Maria will talk about that.
Yeah, I've heard about system with season 1, season 2, etc., which is, I guess, something to make sure people always have a mean to have a progression, a way to progress the character. And I have a question about this by then. Imagine that the 24% represents 1,000 points. Does it mean that if we want to scale the system so that the character, the player can have more stats, this means that the 24% may represent 2,000 points in the future and remain just 24%?
To put this the simplest way possible, the percentages here will not change.
Okay.
The total pie will change.
Oh, okay, that's okay, great.
Yeah. Okay.
When you said you're going to get the full benefit of whatever stat you're going to use, does this also include like enchants and stuff like that? For example, Magica Regen, when you put it on your ring, and you say it adds 12, but if you actually go into your stat, it doesn't actually add 12 because it adds 12 to the base, and then I believe there's a percentage to Magica Regen that's taken into account off of the base to give you your full number.
This will simplify all of that.
Okay, I was trying to figure out the math of that, and it's just...
Yay! Oh. Yes.
So as you said, we are the 1%, so we get it. What the issue is, and this is my suggestion to you, please release a video explaining this before you release this patch. Because I'm going to tell you right now what all the Chicken Littles are going to say. You're forcing me to wear armor I don't want to wear. That's what's going to come right out on the forums, and it's just going to be a flame war right off the bat if you don't really explain it in detail.
Right. We do have a write-up planned. Matt volunteered to explain all of this to the players.
I'll personally go to everyone's house.
With a pie. Just to make sure.
Is there going to be any form of diminishing return for something like, say, armor? Because the biggest concern for me, and the reason that the soft cap was so good, was that it prevents armor from becoming increasingly good as you get more of it. Because if the cap was 99% and you had 98%, and you increased yourself to 99% with one piece, now you're taking half as much damage. And that goes all the way back down to 0. It gets better the more you have. Is there going to be any type of diminishing return to help reduce that effect? Or is it just going to become more and more effective as you get closer to the maximum 50%?
I'm not sure I fully understood what you saw the benefit as being, to be honest with you.
Okay, so if I have, everything on that chart except for Mundus, for example.
Yeah.
So everything on that chart puts me at 98%.
Yep.
And then I go get the Mundus, which gives me another 2% armor, increases my damage mitigation to 99%. I'm now taking half as much damage as before I had that Mundus. Yes, but I'm just giving an example to make it easier to understand.
Oh, okay, so let's see if I can answer it. I think I understand now, which is the way this will work. All of this is a number that we have. Again, it's like that 3,000, although it will be 30,000 later, right? What this will do is it will guarantee you that if you had everything, you would never go over 50% mitigation.
Right.
Okay? So that's the most important thing to understand about this versus soft caps, which actually allow you to go over 50% mitigation, right? Or sorry, they don't allow you to go over 50% mitigation, but they allow you to go over the number that represents 50% mitigation. So you would get over 3,000. And as I said, the only benefit to that really is if somebody does a puncture, then that'll reduce your armor, and then you might still be at 50%
And for example, this is only the armor pie. So if you go 99 into armor, you didn't go into magic resist. We have another pie for blocking. We have another pie, it's just, even if you're the main tank for a raid, maybe armor is not necessarily the very top thing you need to have. Or maybe that is the top thing you need to have, but you also need to take into account there's going to be spells thrown at you, there's going to be a whole bunch of other things. We account for you are going to be blocking. So we're doing a lot more damage to you than just that 50% mitigation can account for.
You mean that you are doing this to make sure that people are have now a real role in
you have to truly make a choice about what you're
tank
going
role
to
or true healer role or DPS role.
Right. The way you equip yourself is going to be really important now.
Oh, okay. Great.
That's not quite what I was trying to get at. I guess what I'm trying to say is that if I have 0 armor and I go get that Mundus, it's only going to increase my damage mitigation by 1%. So I'm going to take 1% less damage than I did before. But if I'm at the hard cap or close to the hard cap at 49%, and then I go get that Mundus, it's going to boost me up to 50%, and now I'm actually taking 2% less damage than I did before. So the Mundus is more effective the more armor that I actually have.
Yes, okay, I see. The system will account for that.
Okay,
because
so it will have a diminishing effect.
Well, it'll have a flat number that it's associating with it at this point, which, if that makes sense.
It's a flat number than that.
Yeah. Okay.
So we'll know that you can never get above X number of armor. And Moonstone will add that X according to what level you are.
Right. And I'm going to let Maria talk now, and then we'll go over questions again.
Will you be talking about pie also?
Yeah, I'll be talking about that 24%. Unless you got all the answers from Paul, I can just... So, hi.
One more slide to click through. Sorry.
Hi.
Hi, my name is Mariela Prando. I've met a bunch of you before. I'm a gameplay designer here at ZeniMax. I'm the PO for Champion, which means the internal point of contact within the company for the Champion system. So we're going to talk about that 24% in the pie. What is Champion? It is a new progression system that will allow your characters to advance and progress past your level 50. So once you hit level 50, there's another progression system that opens up, and you can start spending more points in that system, and that system is Champion. You can spend Champion system points in 9 different constellations. When you spend your points, you get passives. We're going to take a look at a bunch of those passives that you can earn a little bit later. All the characters on your account get the benefits that you have earned, and this includes your non-level 50 characters. So as soon as you hit level 50, Champion unlocks for your account. You can start earning Champion points, start spending Champion points. You can spend those Champion points on your level 50 character, and you can spend them on your non-level 50 character, on your level 32 character. Those points are not shared. So you can spend, if you have 50 Champion points, you can spend 50 Champion points on your highest level character, and you can also spend 50 Champion points on your alts. So it is just a system that rewards your entire account and all of your characters on it. You will be able to respec it per character. So one character can have one spec, and another character can have another spec of Champion points.
One question?
Yeah.
There's 50 points if I have 8 alts and make 50 points for 8 alts. Can I outspend in one?
No.
So I can spend 400 points in one?
Yeah, so you have 50 points, and one alt can spend 50 points, another alt can spend 50 points, another alt can spend 50 points. That spec applies to that character only, so your specs don't Cross.
Ah.
I'll act it out.
As Maria,
Yeah.
each alt can spend those 50 points differently. right?
Absolutely. So if one of your alts is, this is my healing spellcasting character, I want to spend all my champion points on that, or this is my tank character, or this is my RP character, this is my PvP character, this is my crafting character.
So, this leads to a question then. So, say somebody they just want one character.
Yep.
And they're completely invested in that single character where other people may have 8 or whatever. How are you going to differentiate, like, how the people that have a lot of characters can accumulate a lot of points versus the guy that just has 1?
Okay, so champion is also earned account-wide. So champion, the whole system is earned and rewarded account-wide. So I was going to show you a slide about how you earn it, but you earn it through EXP, and only level 50 characters can earn towards the next champion point. So if you play on one level 50 character and you earn champion points there, and then you decide to go over to another level 50 character point, or another level 50 character and earn EXP there, it all goes into the same pool. So it's not like playing on 2 different characters is going to earn you more points. You're earning as many experience points as your account can earn, however you decide to play it.
Jack will be on in just a few
That
seconds,
so yes, we are tracking EXP. So if you are a veteran rank 14 character right now, and you've been veteran rank 14 and you've been earning EXP, as soon as the champion system comes online, you're going to have a whole slew of champion points to start spending, because we're just going to reward you all those points.
Right. To clarify that one thing, though, I wouldn't say that we don't want to put anybody so far ahead of other people that it imbalances it, so we will start everybody with a maximum amount. There will be a maximum amount that anybody can start off with, right?
Yeah,
to bootstrap the system.
We're going to have a conversion ratio that we're working on. I'm one of those characters that wants all my champion points rewarded to me. So yes, we will be giving champion points. If the person, when we launched a champion system and somebody's turned veteran rank 14 and you've been veteran rank 14 for a couple months, you'll have more points than they do.
So what if you have multiple, like you're sitting right now with like...
If you're sitting on 3 veteran rank 14 characters, you're going to have a whole bunch of champion points based on the EXP, right? So if you played that character a bunch, yes, you'll have more champion points because you have obviously played past level 50 for the amount of experience it requires to get to veteran rank, so you're going to get that. But it's all based on experience. So if I played on the same character for the amount of time that you played on 3 characters, I'm going to have champion points.
So my veteran 14 rank can play more and get more points.
You can continue to be rewarded points for a very, very long time. I'll tell you those numbers.
If you're a VR6 character, you're still earning.
You will still earn champion
just not
points.
as many.
You're just not as many, right? Because obviously you haven't played as long, so you haven't earned as much experience.
Okay.
What does that mean for veteran? We are going to introduce champion, and when we introduce champion, both champion and veteran will exist. But the ultimate goal is to get rid of veteran. But we want to get the champion system out to you guys. It's a fun system. We can keep them together. The reason why we're not getting rid of the reason why we're not getting rid of veteran immediately is because it has a lot of repercussions for itemization, balance, and things like that. So for right now, we're going to keep veteran, but we're gonna give you guys champion with the goal of getting rid of veteran. And then we're going to do a conversion. In update 5, we are going to convert veteran ranks from using veteran points, which is like this nebulous point system, to experience points. And that's going to help prep us to getting to the champion system. So what that means is you're going to continue to earn experience just like you always have. We're going to do a conversion from this right now, so when you log on and this conversion happens, you probably won't see very much of a change, honestly, on your character. You'll be at the same rank, same spot within the rank, things like that. Veteran points will no longer exist. They're banished from the game, they don't exist anymore. Experience is all we care about now. Yep.
Right now they kind of use the veteran point system and the veteran rank to be kind of like gear gates, so we just went from 12 to 14.
Yep.
Brand new gear. Is the champion system going to have any sort of restrictions on gear?
Not until we get rid of veteran, which there's a lot of things that we're working on. One of those things is that Do we go to a champion rating system? Do we go to extra level? There's a lot of different ways we can get rid of veteran, but we want to see what the response is first, so we kind of figure out which way we want to take it. But there's a lot of different options we could take that away. Yeah.
Sorry, I still want to, like, right now I have 2 V14 alts,
Yep.
and with someone with 1 Vet 14 alt out of the gate, will I have more champion points than someone who has 1 Vet 14 alt? That's like just plain. Let's say I've had a Vet 14, 2 Vet 14s for 2 months, and someone who's only had 1 Vet 14 for 2 months. Will we both have the same champion, exact same amount?
It depends. Okay, so if you have earned your 2 vet rank 14 characters and combined your total has been 80 million experience points, but I played my 1 vet rank 14 character and I've gotten 120 million experience points, I might have more champion points than you. So we are tracking your EXP, and it is going to be based on EXP. We're going to have a maximum amount that we're going to reward out of the gate, just because we don't want people so radically so much higher than people, but that number is still going to be a very high number. What that number is, I don't honestly know yet, because we're still doing the conversions right now, and we're taking a look at our live data to see how much EXP people have actually earned and what that actually converts to. Yep.
Right. Can I go back? Because I think the question was slightly different, if I understood it, which is, will 2 characters get me more right out of the gate than 1 character?
Yeah, because a lot of my players are freaking out. They're like,
Yeah.
well, I don't want to build an alt. F that. You know, I was born to be a healer. And
the answer is right now, we don't know. There you go. We will probably play with both solutions to see how they go, to see if like you get slightly more than 1. But again, we want to be very careful how we bootstrap this system. And so my leaning is going to be 1 character. It's vet rank 14. The amount you get would just be based off 1 character, and then everything else would go up, but probably that's what
We're not going to be rewarding the champion points right out of the gate, so we want people to start grinding your 2nd character right now today. It's not going to be like that at all.
because that's been the kind of the word on the street is get as many alts
That
as
word's
you
wrong.
can.
Word on the street.
Get as many alts as you can before it drops.
Nope, that's not
Okay.
true.
I was told to ask if when you are converting the experience later to champion points and now to veteran points, does it make sense when you hit V14 to continue play that character, because you can see how many mobs have I killed, how many veteran points or experience points did I make behind hitting veteran level 14, or would it be wiser to say, okay, I hit V14 and now I play one of my alts and get it up?
So only level 50 characters and above, obviously that means vet rank characters, can earn champion points for your account. So it is actually beneficial to continue playing your vet rank character. Now I think, is this a question for the conversion similar to this, where it's as soon as the system comes out, if I have more vet rank characters, I'm going to get more champion points? We are not leaning towards that, so we don't want people to just start rushing a bunch of alts out. Also, only level 50 characters get you champion points as well. So your level 32 is not gonna help you, because champion unlocks at 50.
Yeah, so let's say you have a V14 and a V6.
Yep.
And then can you see how many points I make with my V14, because I can't see it anymore? I hit V14 and then my bar is full and I have no idea.
I understand. Yeah, so we are actually going to change the UI once champion comes out, and unfortunately not before that, but when champion comes out, we're going to have a champion point bar that's going to show you your progress towards your next champion point. We don't show you your experience continuing to go up right now. I think there are mods out there that allow you to see it, but
you can track it.
But you can track it. We're tracking it.
Yes.
So we know the number.
You know, and you can convert the points that I don't see that I have.
Absolutely.
Okay.
Yes. So continuing to play your VR14 character is worthwhile to you. Yep.
While it probably doesn't affect anyone in here, there are a lot of players that don't get to max level because they like having 8 different alts and they play to 8 different alts. What would be the problem with taking that XP? It's going to be a much slower pace because they're not gaining as much per kill or per quest as a max level. So why not include those lower levels with even at the lesser XP gains? Because if they never get max level, they're never going to see that last 24% of the pie.
I think some of the thought there, and this is actually going to play really importantly when console comes out, because nobody's going to have, except for the people that are transferring over, are going to have champion at that time. So I think what the most important thing is while you're leveling up, we don't want to put 3 or 4 or 5 different progression systems on you. You're earning attribute points, you're earning skill points, you're earning champion points, you're getting gear, you're getting, you're doing your main quest, you're doing your alliance quest, you're doing all these different things, you're doing your fighter skill and all that stuff. I don't think that if you enjoy playing at those low levels right now, I think you're going to continue to do so. Most of the champion system is combat bonuses, combat passives. So if you're role-playing or something like that, it's not going to be a detriment in that situation. If you do want to get champion points, you'll need a level 50 character as the design stands right now. I actually haven't thought of the person that doesn't want to get to max level.
Yeah.
So it's something to think about.
Well,
I mean,
I think of one guy in our guild who, he's been playing since Alpha, I believe,
Sure.
and he's such an altaholic that when he hit that first VR rank,
Yeah.
the whole guild lit up with cheers because of that.
Say, now he has a reason to get fit.
Now he has a reason. Yeah.
So that's part of the reason. It is meant to be something that you look forward to, and you're like, oh, cool! I can't wait to get there.
Yep.
I guess this is more of a future question, but with the removal of vet ranks, what happens when you release new content and raise the level cap? Are we going to go up from level 50 to 51 or 55?
We have a
or
lot
are
of
we just gonna level up and
yeah, unfortunately that is a big nebulous question right now. We can do that. We can increase levels. We could convert veteran ranks to levels. We could come up with this new champion rating system where we give all these players a rating and all the new content has a rating. There's a lot of different ways we can go with it, and honestly, there's no right answer right now.
So all we don't know?
We don't know. We don't know how we're going to get rid of it. We want to. There's a lot of different ways we could. We want to see how champion settles and then figure out how we're going to remove it from there. Yep.
So then Imperial City makes sense because there is PvE content for X and PvP content, so I can get more champion points in Imperial City. If I only do Cyrodiil, then I will
We are taking a look at Cyrodiil experience right now, figuring how to make it more beneficial for you to actually get more experience in Cyrodiil. The problem there is a kind of the spirit of the game problem, where we don't want people to just line up at the bottom of the gate and have people trading, pouring oil and getting experience that way. So unfortunately, Cyrodiil is a very risky situation for rewarding a lot of EXP. We don't want to do it on keeps because we don't want you to start trading keeps back and forth to start earning a bunch of experience points. I think once we start going into what you can actually earn in champion, you'll see that as you get more and more champion points and start getting into those things that you really, really want to focus on, then you start getting into the finer details. So really the most important champion points you get are the beginning ones, which allows people to catch up. But Cyrodiil is a risk. We are going to adjust the numbers in there. We have already adjusted the numbers elsewhere. For example, in Cyrodiil, because we're no longer rewarding veteran points, tower grind will no longer be the most efficient method of getting EXP. Actually playing the POIs and doing all the stories is actually the most effective method now. POI tower is still a thing. You can do it if you really just hate doing content and fighting awesome bosses. But actually doing the POIs is actually the most effective method right now.
The problem is more my players leave at veteran 1, rank 1, rank 2 because they want to do this, the second and the third alliance. And they can't get to the trial content in Cracklon because it's veteran rank 10.
So the other thing we're going to be doing right here is we have realized that it takes players stay at their veteran ranks for about 25 hours. And that's a really long time. We have reduced that number down to 15 hours. We're drastically reducing the amount of EXP it's going to take to earn a veteran point. When you earn a veteran point, we're going to give you an attribute point, just like when you were leveling up, so you're going to get a health stamina magicka point. You're also going to get a skill point, just like you did when you leveled up. Now, when you get veteran rank right now, you passively increase in your attributes, so your health, magic, and stamina kind of passively goes up. We've reduced how much we're passively giving you and making that more of an active choice now. So not only have we reduced the amount of time it takes to earn veteran rank, so hopefully when you get there, it's not just like a brick wall of veteran ranks, but there's actually a really good reason to go and do them. And because the most effective method of getting veteran points is actually playing the game now, hopefully if you like playing the game, you'll continue to do so and earn more veteran ranks. Does that answer your question, or?
Yeah, it's a question. Must I do the the two other alliances, or can I go right at 50 to Cracklorn and?
I've done Cracklorn at veteran rank 1 right now. The question is, are you good enough to do Cracklorn at veteran rank 1? There's a lot of different ways that you can go through it. I think the most effective method is going to be taking a group with you. So if you have friends who are veteran rank 6 or whatever, and they want to play with you, you can go through with that.
Or can I say at 50 I go to Cyrodiil,
you
do
can
a
go
little bit PvP and BVP
and now Imperial City is going to be around.
And then go to Cracklorn.
Yep. So you can go do Imperial City. You can go do Cracklorn. You can go do that stuff. I believe you guys had questions up first.
So obviously, like, everyone here is going to share some of this information with their guilds. So until the point in which this launches, what's going to stop all the exporters from going, oh man, I'm veteran rank 14, but they're already logging how many experience points I am gaining. So instead of doing PvP all day, I'm just going to go crazily grind bosses and Craglearn so that my counter is as high as it can be by the time.
We're going to put a max on the amount of champion points we're going to reward out the gate. We don't know what that number is, but there isn't a person that can go get 1,800 champion points out the gate.
Challenge accepted.
Yeah.
So this seems like a very sort of shift to a much more horizontal-based progression model at level 50. And so, how do you think that will? What implications do you think that will have for sort of like Cadwell's Gold, Cadwell's Silver? Will you let people have a choice now? And then also in terms of like Servant Trial is harder than the Mage Trial. Like, how are you going to let them know the order in which they might tackle different challenges, or the veteran dungeons? I guess those are in a scale now, so.
Yes, so we are talking about changing a lot of, with the champion system we have to change a lot of the balance of the whole game anyway. We have been talking about unlocking, for example, Silver and Gold, or Cadwell's Silvers and Cadwell's Gold at the same time, allowing you to just play that. We haven't confirmed it yet, but we are thinking towards those lines. So you can pick more of what you want to do instead of saying, I have to go through this, then I have to go through this, then I have to go through this. Now, for the trials, we do want those to be hard challenges. But what we are going to do is we're going to scale dungeons. So if you are veteran rank, 8 or whatever, and you want to go do Fungal Grotto, non-veteran version Fungal Grotto, you can now Fungal Grotto veteran 8. So there's still going to be a lot of different challenges you can do. That answers a little bit of your question too. If you wanted to go do dungeons, now that dungeons scale, they're worth the EXP now.
Do you envision the trials still being sort of a vertical progression structure though?
So let me just answer this as straight as I can. I'd love to see vertical progression in the way we're talking about with earning levels go away completely after 50, right? That would be my dream, honestly. Now, when you're talking about trials, we want trials to be a certain level of difficulty that we say we start off the champion system like, okay, here's where the level of difficulty is, here's the watermark, right? Then when we introduce any new content from that, the way we would raise that watermark would probably be through itemization. So that would be more of how you're progressing, because you have to want to get new things, right? That's all part of the fun, and that's part of the chase. But we don't want you to feel like, I can't go into Cyrodiil, right? And that's when we talked about the seasonal gear, which was brought up earlier. And what that means is that say again that watermark was at season 1, and then we'd say, okay, well season 4 you're so much more powerful than you were at season 1, but it turns out we actually make it easier to get season 2 gear. Right? Just as like we introduced this, so you're not so far behind, you can catch up pretty easily at that point. So there might be a vertical progression as far as gear is concerned, but probably not as much in player level that way.
That's great.
So back to Paul's awesome pie, just for a second. I
You
would
haven't
go,
even seen the fun.
I would go coconut pie. but
Okay.
That's just me. For a lot of my players who are looking into min-maxing and stuff, you said the champion system. I mean, I'm gonna use an analogy as in the Paragon system in Diablo 3, where the roof is in that system. There is no roof. You just keep going and going and going. And you said the roof is very high. Can you only min-max that 24% when you reach whatever the ceiling is you
Yes.
establish?
Yes, absolutely. So we do not expect. We expect maybe 1% of players to ever reach that ceiling of a full 24% slice of pie. Now, I'm going to go into the contributions in a little bit, so I'm going to skip ahead here because a lot of the next slides we've actually already talked about through question answering. Oops, I turned it off. How are points earned? You earn them through EXP. The points are they're based on your account. You can spec out any of your characters however you like. The pool is not shared. And non-level 50 characters can allocate those points to, and only level 50 characters can earn towards new points. So anybody can spend the points, only level 50 can earn new ones. How are the points spent? So that's a good question, and instead of making you read this wall of text, instead I'm going to show this video. Video.
Just a picture of a pie in an oven.
So this is the champion system. That might be familiar if you saw the QuakeCon video. And basically the way that this works is, I'm going to go back a little bit.
Desktop wallpaper.
So there's three major constellations if you guys are familiar with the lore. There's the warrior, which is health, thief, which is stamina, mage, which is magicka. Okay? So under the three major constellations are three minor constellations. When you earn your first champion point, your very first champion point, you must spend it in the warrior. So you must spend it in the constellations that are in the red area. Then you spend your next point in stamina, spend your next point magicka, health, stamina, magicka, health, stamina. You just keep going around the sky. So as you earn a point, you travel around the sky and pick one of the three minor constellations to spend your point in. So let me go back to here, just pause it. No, I didn't mean to stop.
So what you're saying is you have to spend a point in all three major attributes before you can get to any of the minors?
No, I'm sorry. So what I meant was, so this is the warrior. There's a steed, the lady, and the lord in the warrior. You can spend your point in any three of these constellations. You can spend it anywhere you want in here, in the red area. Your next point, you have to spend in any of the three constellations in the green area. And the next point you have to spend in any of the constellations in the blue area.
I have two. I can go with the three in there.
So if you want to spend 2 points in the lady, you need to spend a point in the lady, spend a point here, spend a point here, then spend the next point in the lady. Okay? So as you spend a point, you basically are starting to travel around the sky. I see lots of questions already. Why?
Yes. Why can't I just put all my points into the warrior if I want?
Because we want you to start diversifying what you're going to do. So if you want to spend a bunch of points in armor, that's great. You can spend all your points in the Lord. Start spending them there. But you may not just want armor, you also probably want to reduce the amount of time that your character is stunned, or make it so when you roll dodge, stamina abilities are able to be used easier. Maybe you want to get some spell mitigation. Or maybe you want to make it so when you block more projectiles, or maybe, so there's a lot of different defensive options in the whole tree. So it's not like defense is here.
Okay.
And you have to wait to spend all your points in defense. It's armor's here. Roll dodging is here. Spell mitigation is here. And you will be able to focus your character while still traveling around the sky. So there's options for your character. If you're like, I'm a tank, there are still places to spend your points in stamina. There's still places to spend your points in magicka.
That are relevant to tanking.
That are relevant to tanking. If you're a magic character, there are still relevant places to spend your points in the other two. Yep.
Will there be tiers we have to unlock?
I'm glad you asked that question. I'll go into that in just a second. Yep.
Wouldn't it be easier just to go the prerequisite system where certain skills and certain trees require a prerequisite from another skill instead of forcing people to go 1, 1, 1, 1, 1, 1, 1? So say I wanted to get to a certain point in, say, the lover tree. So I had to put so many points in a skill that was in the warrior to access the one in lover, or say I want to get into the mage tree, I had to put so much in the warrior to get to a certain skill in the mage tree, and actually require that skill to be the prerequisite for the previous skill.
So there's two reasons we went with this. One of the reasons is as soon as you go into this constellation, there's 4 things to spend it on. So you have 4 options, 4 options, 4 options. We want to give you as many options as possible and many ways to customize your character. If you're restricted by, I have to spend, exactly these points in this situation, in this location, in order to unlock the thing I really, really want, I don't think that's going to get you the kind of character that
I meant more of a corresponding skill. So say, I had something that had additional increase on block or something like that, and then I had another skill in a different tree that reduced the amount of stamina required to do said skill. But in order to reach the reduction, I had to first take the block skill itself, so they're connected together.
Yeah, let me just cut it down to the straight note. This slows people down from overpowering things too early.
Okay. And it looks like pie.
Sweet.
Are the higher ones going to cost more? Is everything just 1 point, or the higher ones, precise strikes, going to cost 3 champion points per level?
So
whatever.
So you see.
Or is it like Skyrim where they have to connect?
So basically, the way I want to get to a tree that I can actually start mousing over. Okay, so I'm sorry for these ENG things. I actually shot this morning, and this is what our dev currently looks like. So the way that this works is, unfortunately we don't have our UI complete, but there are 4 stars in here. That is Light Armor Focus, Frost Might, Spell Soak, and Infusion are the 4 options that you can go into right away. I know that this is not laid out perfectly, but I did this morning, I'm sorry. So there are 4 options as soon as you get into the tree, or into the constellation, that you can choose your points in. If you start spending, say you spent 10 points in the entire constellation, Merchant Favored becomes unlocked. You don't have to spend a point in it, you are just rewarded with Merchant Favor. So there are 4 things that you can spend your points in. There are 4 things that automatically unlock for the amount of points that you spent in them, and you're just rewarded that passive automatically. Does that make sense yet?
So basically, we're customizing in the Atronach tree, like light armor focus. You really want to focus on that, then
Yeah, if
things
you're
start
like,
unlocking.
I don't care about any of these things, I just want to put 100 points in light armor focus. I don't care about any of these other stats, I don't care about the frostmite, don't care. I'm going to put 100 points into light armor focus, that's fine. All 4 of those rewarded passes will unlock for you. Doesn't matter where you spend your points in the Atronach, you will get rewarded for the amount of points that you're spending in there.
So there's no hierarchy we have to follow. We can pick any of the 4.
Any of the 4. Any of the 4 you want, and any of the other constellations you want as well. The only restriction is you must travel around the sky.
And there are always 8 in the 9.
Yes, there's always 8 in the constellation. So
Okay.
there's always 4 that you choose and 4 that are unlocked.
Okay.
Do you have an example of how the distribution of points can be?
So... No, that's not what I meant. Let's go to here. Let's go to here. So this example is the Lord. I know that's a picture of the lady, but the example that I wrote down is the Lord. So in the Lord, there is a skill called Stout, and it reduces the duration that the player is stunned. That could be something you want, it could not be something you want. There's 3 other options if you want to go into the Lord. There's also 2 other constellations within the warrior. So if you don't like the Lord at all, you don't have to go into the Lord. But if you spend 100 points in the Lord, you unlock Last Stand. There's a 10-point unlock, 30-point unlock, 50-point unlock, and a 100-point unlock. So this is the highest possible unlock you can get within the Lord. Yep.
This is a good question. So I'm envisioning you going around the sky, and let's say you want to respec. Can I be like, oh, well, I'm going to put 100 points here, or do you have to click it once, go around, click,
right,
like 300 times rotating around the sky, respec?
So,
that's going to drive people nuts.
So we have decided to come up with this kind of respec mode in which you say, I'm going to respec. And the system goes, okay, and you can unclick stars here, click them over here. You say, nope, just wipe the whole pie, or you can say, wipe the entire mage pie. I'm going to redo all my mage points.
As long as it bounces at the end, it's okay.
As long as it bounces at the end, and then you hit confirm, and it'll respec. Our first iteration of that is probably unclicking and then clicking again. We're hoping to get the full option of respec, and I know the secondary question is, why can't I do that for skills? That's also something that we're thinking about. That's also something we're thinking about for skills. It's just time that it takes, but we will have a much easier system, because if you have 2,100 champion points, yeah, you don't want to click 2,100 times, right?
So how much point I could spend in light armor?
700.
10 or 100?
700. You can put 700 points in light armor.
In this one?
You can put 700 points in stout.
So that's the max, 700.
So 700 in one star.
In 1 star.
1 star.
Okay. So there's 2,100 points.
Let me give you the translation for this. So we expect earning a champion point to take you about 1 hour.
Okay. That's nice, okay.
700 times in a circle, though.
What's the difference? If I do understand the system, if I want to be to put most of my points in the warrior constellation, if I do understand the system, I also have to put some points in the other constellation. How is it balanced? How many points I have to put in the other constellation?
It's
compared to the warrior constellation.
Your points have to be split into a third. So you will
one third.
One third. Yep. But there are points, if you're a tank, there are points worth spending in Magicka. If you want to get spell resist, or you want to get spell soak, when you block, you get Magicka back, things like that. So there are...
The reason for this constraints is just to make sure that people are not going to be way too powerful in just one constellation, right?
Yes.
Okay.
Yep.
Yeah. Is there going to be the opportunity to earn champion points in Cyrodiil at the same rate that you'd be able to earn it in PvE? Because right now, there is a large disparity, like for instance, when VR12 came out, when VR14 came out, some people prefer to stay in Cyrodiil and just kind of like progress slowly.
Yep.
And some people prefer to go to Craglorn and grind it out in 2-3 hours.
Yep.
And that's fine, there's not that big of a difference. But with the champion system, if there's that disparity of earning XP in the one environment and not earning in the other, you're basically going to be penalized for wanting to play your playstyle if your playstyle happens to be PvP.
We have played with the idea of earning, because just like you earn skill points from completing a quest or something like that, we have played with the thought of earning champion points through another means, but until we actually get the system in and testing, we're holding off on that for right now. But there are ways that we could reward players through champion points through other means. We could earn them through alliance rewards and things like that. One of the risks that we don't want to increase experience too much, we actually have already increased in experience, I think for package 5, for ABAs, we don't want that experience trading. So if there's another way that we can reward that PvP player, we'll start exploring that as well.
I think that's the main point. So I'm not saying that anybody in this room might do this, but let's say Maria calls me on the phone and says, hey, can you log into your Aldmeri character and I can just kill you over and over again to get experience? Then then that becomes one of the things we have to be very careful about, the amount of experience we give in Cyrodiil, and that's part of the reason why. But we're not saying we don't want you to gain experience. We're just saying we have to be careful about the faucets that give you experience.
I understand and I fully empathise with that, because as most people who follow the forums know, I'm very much against exploiting and all of that stuff. But are you not kind of like punishing the legitimate players at that point who play PvP so as not to so as to discourage the kind of like the non-legitimate players, for want of a better word?
Which is why we're raising it now, and we're going to see how it goes. And so in other words, we're kind of just seeing how it goes to make sure that those people can get, the legitimate players can get.
We are absolutely tracking the rate of EXP gain in different areas of the game right now, and if we find that one area of the game is just not rewarding at all, and we don't want people to stop playing Cyrodiil, right? So we'll have to come up with another means to reward those players champion points, and we can do it through different systems. Right now the only system is EXP, but just like we can reward skill points through the completion of a quest, or we can give you items in the Alliance War for your contributions, we can think of things like that as well. But I think we just changed the EXP values, so we need to see how that goes first, see what the values are, and then if we need to reward players in different ways, we can start exploring that as well.
Okay.
Did I answer your question?
Yes, it answers my question whether I'm satisfied is a different thing. because I think you have to be more proactive on basically rooting out the bad players that are making it difficult for the legitimate players to advance in PvP.
I hear you, but I'm going to tell you the honest truth on this, and you know, whether you're satisfied with this answer or not is up to you. But you can't determine intent. That's the developer's nightmares. We can never determine intent of players.
We want all the systems of the game to be rewarding, and if one system is not, we will certainly rework it to be.
Yeah.
But we have to see first, unfortunately.
We'll throw it out there. I'll do it.
Yeah.
Two things. One, I actually appreciate that you take your time on an increasing experience in PvP, because Star Wars, when that came out, they didn't. People were rank 100 in the Warlord status in the first 5 days. Not because they were exploiting, but because they all went out to Ilum and they just died and killed each other, and boom, instantly top level. They didn't revert anything, so I'm happy that not everyone's ranked 50 already in ESO, because 1 week was, whoops, we hit 100 times the experience rate on accident. So I appreciate that. Another, you said earlier about an hour per champion point, and then I guess you would be dead on then with the 1% getting 2,100 points, because if you look at game tracking places like Raptor, 1,000 hours right now will put you at about the top 1%. So that's interesting that you always see those points coming in, and I like that. That's a really good system.
She was first. You can let her go first.
I know that there are many casual players who are afraid of the champion system. The reason is because they are already so slow that they are way behind many players. And they are afraid that when you change it to the champion system, that the fast players already are way far before them, and they will never ever close the gap.
Absolutely. Yep.
And they have no information yet about what you thought about it.
Okay. So that is a huge concern for the champion system. So I'm just going to go over this really fast, and then we'll do questions again, but I want to go over making sure that when we introduce the players to the champion system, that there isn't just this huge, division between the players that have a ton of champion points and between the players that don't have a ton of champion points in concerns of power and potential. So we don't want things to happen where it's like, you must have 1,700 champion points to even walk inside this house. Things like that. So we don't want things like that to happen to players. We don't want to divide them. We want to reward them, but we still don't want to divide players. One of the ways that we're doing this is points are more meaningful in the beginning of the system. And what that means is the value of a point degrades as you continue to spend points into that specific skill. So for example, you can spend 700 points in light armor. The first point that you spend in light armor gives you a 1% bonus to light armor. The 40th point you spend in light armor gives you a 0.1% increase to light armor. So you could spend your next 41th point in light armor to give you another plus 1% increase, or you could go spend it in health and get a 1% increase in health, right? So it's actually going to encourage you to start dividing up your points in the beginning of the system because you get a much higher benefit to spending those points in the beginning. So for example, your question of armor. I need to put 700 points in armor to get that 24%. How many points do I need to spend in armor to get 19%? It's not half of that. You know, things like that. You can get up to that threshold that we balance out much faster than you can completely fill the pie. So the person that's 6 months late to the system is not completely getting left behind because the first points that they spend are way more valuable than the person that's been in the system is spending for a long time. Now the person that's been in the system for a long time is 5% better at that thing, just because they've gotten more. So you're still more powerful, you're just not so significantly more powerful that you can't even be friends with this person anymore. Yep.
There is also a situation where people who are playing the game don't see any benefits when they are reaching a certain level cap, and then at the end they just leave the game because they are not rewarded anymore. So that's a matter of balance between the casual players and the hardcore players. But how does the system scale up with any tier system that you would like to implement in a way that could also be a solution to prevent the casual gamers to be way too far from the hardcore gamers, you know? When you reach season 2, when you reach season 3, you can, if you are a casual gamer, you can reach season 2 much more in a faster way.
Yep.
So you can close the gap. You know?
One of the things that Paul talked about is, and I'll get to your question in a moment, sir, I know you had your hand up for a while.
Is it only percentage? So if you reach the third tier of the season system, then it's just a matter of having more stats, more points. Just
yes,
you have 20% more points because you have invested champion points in a particular constellation system?
Yes, it won't be based on season, it will be based on your play. So your experience, or if we do another reward system through AVA or anything that's giving less rewards than we expect it to be now. So it won't be, so if you've been playing longer, you will have more champion points, but you won't be so out of range of the people that are trying to catch up. I don't know if that kind of answered your question, but there will be a way for people to catch up, and it's called Enlightenment. But I want to get to your question first, because I know you've got
So the last slide kind of answered my question, that obviously there's the diminishing returns with the points you put in there. But like, for example, Stout, if you put 700 points into that, what is the maximum effect of the reduction of being stunned or whatever?
So we're going to have to look at the reduction pie, but it's probably around 24%.
Okay, so if it's 1 second, 24% off of that is the max you can get if you put every single point into that.
Yes.
Okay.
Assuming that 24% is the percentage of the champion pie that we put into that, into reductions. So I'm going to go into Enlightenment, which is a way for people to catch up. If anybody's got any questions before that. Okay. Sorry, I've been skipping around. You guys asked really good questions, so I'm basically skipping around. So what Enlightenment is it boosts the EXP earned towards champion points only. So it works on your level 50 character, because your level 50 character is the only one that can earn champion points. And it boosts the experience that you're going to earn towards your next champion point. So your level 50 character actually gets more experience when they're enlightened, rewarding your entire account with champion points. You accumulate enlightenment as long as a level 50 character exists on your account. That means if you're logged off or logged on. So while your account exists, you with a level 50 character on it, you will get enlightenment. So if you're like, I want to play my level 50 character right now, I'm going to go play my level 32 character, and I'm just going to like play around or whatever, your level 32 character won't have enlightenment, but your account will be earning it. So when you go back to your level 50 character, boom, you have enlightenment, and you can speed up your skill gain. So there's not a penalty for not playing that level 50 character, because your account is accumulating enlightenment, and when you go back to that level 50 character, you're going to be able to get your next skill point, or your next, champion point, a lot faster. Enlightenments can be only used by level 50 characters, and it helps people catch up. So if you log on, obviously if you log on 24 hours a day, and you play 24 hours a day earning EXP, yeah, you're going to earn more champion points than the person that only logs in 5 hours a day. But that person that's logged in for 5 hours has enlightenment, and you've burned up all of yours. So while you still are going to be earning more, because obviously you're playing more and you're getting more EXP, the person that's like, I'm just going to let my enlightenment accumulate, and then I'm going to log on tomorrow, and I'm going to burn all my enlightenment, and then when it's gone, I'm going to go to my level 32 character, play around, do some dungeons, maybe I'll roleplay, maybe I'll craft a little bit, and then I'll go back to my level 50 character, and I'll start earning some champion points, or I'll go play a skilled up dungeon. So it's, yep.
It's account-wide, like it's 1 bar.
It's account-wide, so if you have 2 level 50 characters, that enlightenment, just like experience, is into the same pool. So if you use up your enlightenment on one character, then you won't have it on the other character. But you can go back and forth between the characters, spend your enlightenment on either of the 50 characters that you want. Yep.
Would both level 50 characters be earning enlightenment, or is
yes.
it? Okay.
Well, I'm sorry, I should say enlightenment is like an unlock, just like champion. So if your account has at least 1 level 50, and then it doesn't matter however many level 50s you have after that, you're still earning the same value of enlightenment.
Cool, thank you.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
Is there a maximum?
There is a maximum. I don't know that number right off the bat. We're playing with as much as it takes to get a champion point.
Okay.
Yep.
Is it starting right from the moment you log off, or is it starting at a later point? So when you log off with your level 50 and you log on the next evening again, you already have enlightenment, or is it if you are logged out for a longer period?
So you will be getting enlightenment on time intervals, which is right now it's like 5 or 10 minutes. Just we're playing with however many pings we can give to the server. Right now I think it's every 10 minutes we're just going to give you X amount of enlightenment. That X meaning I don't know the exact number right now, but we're going to give you X amount of enlightenment. It doesn't matter if you're logged on. It doesn't matter if you're logged off. It doesn't matter if you're on a level 50 character. It doesn't matter if you're just sitting in town doing nothing. Every 10 minutes, you'll be rewarded with, boom, there's your enlightenment, boom, there's your enlightenment, boom, there's enlightenment. You'll only see this if you log on to your level 50 character. So if you're on your level 32, you will not be spending your enlightenment, and you will not be earning your champion points. But as soon as you log into your level 50 character in there, your enlightenment's waiting for you. Go ahead, go have fun. Yep.
Next question, can you turn the enlightenment on or off? Because maybe if you're on your level 50 character, and you're wanting, for example, to roleplay or something like that, is that enlightenment getting burned up? Or
I'm sorry. No, it's not. It doesn't get used unless you're earning experience. So if you're just sitting in town doing nothing, it just boosts the amount of experience that you're gonna earn. Okay. So it's not like, boom, it gives you 10 minutes and then that time goes down. It just gives you an amount. And then gives you an amount. And that amount can accumulate, or you can decide not to spend it. I'm just going to sit in town, or I'm going to craft, so I'm not earning EXP right now, or I'm going to go sit in Cyrodiil and just stand on a mountain and go like this.
And does it carry over, or is it on 24-hour periods?
It carries over up to the maximum, so there is at a certain point, your enlightenment will be full. Right now, we're playing with that full amount being the amount it takes to get a champion point. Gotcha. What?
20 minutes.
Oh, I thought you said 20 seconds. That's like, great question. Another question? Yep.
Comment. Whoever did the art for that.
It's me. No, it's not me.
It's beautiful. Whoever did it, it looks amazing.
For the champion system?
Yeah, it's really well done.
I will pass that
So-
along. I thought they did a great job as well.
Yeah.
I never actually went through the whole video, so
Yeah, look at the video.
I'll just play it for you guys. So
Hey,
So as you can
Just
see,
your
you can
FPS
see the
thing.
stars are in the different constellations. I just shot this morning, so this is what it looks like currently in development. The art, the star art is probably going to change. We're going to have it more clear, so it's like, you know that this hasn't had a point in it, or this is unlocked, things like that. Yep.
It's much more a Skyrim feeling, I think.
Yeah, it looks like spirits.
I have a question about Stout again. So you told us if you spend 700 points in it, the mitigation is kept on, let's say, 50%. So when do I know it's useless to put more points in it?
You won't be able to put 701 points in it. It'll lock out. You just can't put another point into it. It will tell you every time you put a point into it how much you're going to earn. So it'll say, you currently have 15% reduction in duration, and if you spend a point, you're going to get 15.1 times reduction. So it'll let you know what your next point is going to reward you, and you might say, at 15%, and the next one only gives me 0.1%. I'm going to start spending my points in bow proficiency, and I'm going to start doing more damage with bows. Or I'm going to start putting more points into heavy armor, or, hey, I'm only 3 points away from unlocking the 100 tier in warrior, let me go do that.
Okay, thank you.
How are you feeling about the visibility of someone's champion level? Do you want that to be public knowledge? Or?
So that is something that we have been toying with. We have a couple different ways that we can do it. So unlike veteran rank, where it just says veteran 14 and I'm veteran 2, I'm not going to go fight that guy, things like that. We have an idea of iconography that we can put on the health bar to help you know how many champion points, know roughly how within the power level is. Now, honestly, we hope that players aren't so far from each other that you don't even have a chance. Because if they spent 700 points in one place, maybe you spend 300 points somewhere else, and that 300 points is actually more useful to you. So we are designing it with the goal in mind that you want to diversify your points. And in doing so, you're going to gradually grow in power, but you're not going to leave people so far behind that it's just unreasonable that a skilled player cannot beat you. But if through testing we find that, nope, when somebody has 24% more armor than you, you probably want to know that, we do have a plan for iconography.
In terms of the way that players socialize, though, do you envision it being a status symbol, or?
It's hard to say. I mean, it's just like the same way that veteran rank is a status symbol. I mean, it's something that everybody can achieve, so it's not something like the Serpent Trial, where it's like, I beat the Serpent Trial, and boom, I'm wearing the Serpent Trial dye, and I've got the Serpent Trial helmet and everything, and you're like, that guy's awesome, there's no way I can beat the Serpent Trial. But if you're like, that guy's got 700 champion points, you're like, ooh, scary, I've got 400, at what point is it more important to know? And we can only figure that out through testing, honestly.
I think one of the other things we've been discussing internally and are kind of mixed on is the champion rating, which is a combination not just of how many points you spent in the champion system, but actually what your armor totals end up being. So kind of a rating of your overall strength as a player. And there's a lot of benefits to this, which enables you to find out whether you're up to a certain challenge, whether you can attack that monster or whatever. But then there are a lot of issues with that, which is, some people feel like lesser class citizens because they're not of a certain champion rating. So we have to be really careful about it, but it's something we're talking about internally, like what's the best way to handle it.
And also because your build, that 24% you're getting from buffs is still 24%. Your actives are just as important as champion because it's the same. Your base value is also 24. Your items and your activations together are more than champion. So it's the champion rating is that, but it's also how do we rate somebody's build? Can we even do that? As the system keeps evolving, as abilities keep changing and things like that. So A lot of questions there. We have some ways to deal with it, but we won't know until testing. Is it? Did I use?
It's pretty close. It's pretty close. I mean, we have some questions.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
That we could ask, but we can also ask that as a dinner as well. We can ask them now. When are we supposed to head over for dinner?
The drivers are supposed to be here around 7:30.
Okay. 7:30.
I think our dinner reservation's at 8, so it's pretty relaxed. It's only like 10 minutes away from here.
Okay. Yeah, head over.
Can I change as well?
Yeah, I was thinking run back to the hotel, clean up.
Can we like go change?
Can you go change? Yeah, absolutely. Look,
We'll be at dinner.
We'll be at dinner.
Just the player knows himself what his champion rating is. It's, you know.
Well,
That's
once that player knows, somebody will create the add-on that lets the other people know, right? I mean, there is that possibility. So if we ever get a rating, then it's probably something that will be public anyway.
We'll be at dinner.
Yep. There's three type of constellation, each divided into 3 parts.
Correct.
Does it mean that each of these 3 parts there's a healing part, DPS part, and tanky part, or?
Not necessarily. It goes more towards the theme of what that is. Let me go back in this video and we can actually go over some of the passives. Now these passives obviously might change through development. So for example, the shadow, the theme is obviously stealth, sneaky, shadowy stuff. So we have Defile, which I believe is disease benefits, resistances to disease, and also more disease damage. So if you're a werewolf and you start doing disease damage with their new werewolf abilities that are coming out. Combat Medic, which allows you, when you're while you're resurrecting a player, you take less damage. So you are just suddenly harder to kill while resurrecting somebody. So if you're standing there resurrecting and you see like this sword coming at your face, you're like, maybe I can stay here, you know. So there's that. Elusive is while you're roll dodging, you take less damage from direct damage abilities. Direct damage abilities are fire on the ground, things that you can't dodge. So things like fire on the ground or environmental effects, you can't actually dodge because they're not projectiles, they're not physical things. But while you're roll dodging, you'll take less damage. Blade Expert is what it sounds like. You do more damage with blades. Nimble is you take less damage from direct damage, and Elusive is actually when you roll dodge, you get a bonus to your stamina for attacks. So as soon as you roll dodge, you can start going into attacks because all of a sudden you've got the stamina to use them. Treasure Hunter is when you open treasure, you find more gold. I honestly forgot what Skirmisher does. There's 72 abilities, by the way. And Shadow Strike is while you're stealthed, your heavy attacks. Oh, and Shadow Strike's an unlock. It's the 100-point unlock in Shadow. So when you are stealthed, your heavy attacks charge 50% faster. So you can go into stealth and all of a sudden just come out with a heavy attack.
Does that work with like proccing Veil of Blades?
It works with things like invisibility. So if you start.
Well, yeah, if you proc Veil of Blades, you'll be invisible and you can do it.
So if you take an invisibility potion and you're a dread, which is what I do in combat, and you're a Dragon Knight or something, you're just like, oh, I'm invisible, it's like heavy attack.
So if Dark Cloak starts working again, that'll be really useful.
Yeah. Yep.
Would there be a tooltip so I see which of these skills is unlocked with 100 points spent?
Absolutely. So unfortunately,
because now I have no idea.
Yeah, absolutely. This is all like in development UI right now. So absolutely, the stars will be different colors. They'll be different sizes. They'll be much more prominent. You won't have all this like clutter ENG0, which means in engineering, it means it's not ready to be seen. Here it is. So obviously the lover is a little bit different. She's more focused on bows. She gives you bonus speed. She makes gathering faster, so you just can pick up things a lot faster. She's more focused on speed. Yep.
So the max level in the future is 50.
We have no current plans to do anything like. Yeah.
And where takes this normal fungal grotto and veteran fungal grotto place? What will then be?
So what we're kind of thinking of for the non-veteran and veterans is what we really call them internally is part 1 and part 2. So it's the first part of the story and the conclusion of the story is how we kind of talk about them internally. And we call them veteran because they unlock at veteran. But now because dungeons will scale, you could play Fungal Grotto Part 1, which right now to you guys is non-veteran Fungal Grotto, at veteran rank, whatever you want. It scales up to 12 right now because we want to keep whatever the newest dungeon at the highest veteran rank, which is currently 14, which is City of Ash. And
yes, which you'll see tomorrow.
Which you'll see tomorrow, spoiler alert. But yeah, all the dungeons will scale up to 12. And then if you want to see part 2, you can see that as well. Now, that part 2 will still unlock when you hit veteran rank. But now, when you hit veteran rank, all of the veteran dungeons will unlock. Yep.
What the question I have read several times in the forums is what happens with the current veteran rank equipment, the recipes, the potions, because how does the system know I'm still able to take it and who is not able to use it?
So it'll still be dependent on your level. So if you and I go into a dungeon and I'm veteran rank 3 and you're veteran rank 5, which means you have the veteran rank 5 recipes, the item that is able to be used, for example, consummate honey brittle. I can't use that because the item level requirement is still veteran 5. So even if you give it to me, I can't use it, but I can use anything else you give me. When the loot drops in the dungeon, it will scale to whichever is lowest, the monster or you. So if we go into a dungeon and the dungeon is scaled to veteran rank 3, and you are veteran rank 5, veteran rank 3 items will drop. But I'm veteran rank 3, and so I'll get veteran rank 3 items.
But what I meant is when the champion system starts. And
oh, when we get rid of veteran. Oh, okay, I'm sorry.
Right.
And
So
we don't know.
Yeah, that's a really good
We have
question.
no idea.
What you saw most of today was phase 3 versus what is the phase 4, which is we actually get rid of the veteran ranks itself in its entirety. So if we get rid of the veteran ranks in its entirety, what you might see is a complete flattening of all of that stuff.
Well, we don't know. We have 3 or 4 different options we can go with, but that's like phase 5, and we're on phase 3 right now, so design down the road. I'm sorry?
Phase 1.
Phase 1.
Phase 2 will be...
Slight modifications to the abilities.
Well, it's on PTS, right? So it will be on PTS soon, which is update 5.
Okay. Oh yeah, which is the veteran points change.
Right, and that'll be phase 2, and then we'll get to phase 3, which is most of what you saw today.
Yeah.
Is it possible we could see this in update 6?
I would say anything is possible except that.
Yeah.
This really is going to take a lot of balancing and whatnot. So I mean, I wouldn't say never except
you will see. You will start to see ability changes to start getting ready for stuff. You'll see in each of the updates things getting ready and kind of like, hey, we're getting closer, you know, before we just like, haha, we redid everything, and we'll start, you know, communicating more with you guys and the rest of the community before we just, hey, guess what, change everything. Yep.
I know Paul said he'll this will be released when it's ready, but you kind of said that console players will be able to already have this. Console was pushed back 6 months, which I assume would have been November.
No,
I don't know
again, this console's not tied to this at all. I mean, we think in terms of console and PC a lot, but that has nothing to do with this whatsoever. Right?
I was just saying in relation to when they start playing, there will be new players. So there won't be a whole slew of, you know, veteran people.
We're gonna stop right now. I think we have the car taking us for the restaurant in about half an hour. So if you guys want to go back to the hotel, just leave your there and come back for the car, we need to start.
And the car's leaving from here at Zenimax or at the hotel?
Yes, I think so. I don't know.
Maybe. It's a pretty short walk
What
either
I
way.
understand it was leaving from here. Let me just come forward.
So,
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you.
So